So, China, 2,000 years ago, all right? Or so you think. Or so you think. But this is what China really looks like, all right? It looks something like this, all right? It looks something like this. It's each one of these is its own little kingdom, all right?
Wow.
And here, what do you want?
Can you explain your shirt to us first?
Oh, the shirt? All right, so here's the joke. All right, Dad, I've decided to major in philosophy. That's good because they're just opening a philosophy factory. Okay, look, anyways, here's how the story goes. All right, over here you got Wang. All right, you got Wang. And over here you got Li. All right, they're both kings. All right. They get into a minor argument over whose concubines suck better dick, and as a result, 50,000 perish in a tragic war, resulting in the collapse of both kingdoms and their laws. Okay, so back then, each of these little countries, they had their own laws, they had their own kings, and they didn't last very long, all right? And the law and the stability that comes with the law was a luxury. It was a luxury offered only to the strongest, baddest, biggest countries, all right? So most of China back then was a lawless, ever-shifting tide of different countries, all right? Now, born somewhere over here is this guy. His name's Kong, all right? I don't know how to write his name in Chinese. His name's Kong, right? And he went here, and he's like, damn, y'all really live like this? And it was just, hey, can you sit down? Unending warfare that he saw. Bloodshed, chaos, and what he wanted to do, and he was a teacher, by the way, and what he wanted to teach was peace onto a warring China, right? He wanted to teach a way that will ensure peace and harmony even without the law. Because remember, each of these countries had their own laws, and the law would flip upside down if you walked like 5 kilometers in one direction, right? And so he wanted to teach a system of ethics which would ensure harmony without law. Now that's a very difficult thing to do, right? But he did it. Anyways, he did it, he succeeded, and that's why we call him Fuzi, right? Confucius. It's a title given to our greatest philosophers, and translated into Latin, his name is Confucius. Confucius. Oh. Ah, okay. Anyways, we have to start with his sociology, I suppose, right? So here's how he saw China work. Here's how he saw China, all right? So, is this in frame? Whatever. So, he saw the entire society as a big family structure, right? The family is the basic unit of society. So, down here you have your little grandkids, and then here you have your parents, and then your grandparents, and then at the top you have your patriarch, right?
Because it was a matriarchal society.
Or your patriarch or your matriarch or whatever, right? It's a hierarchy within a family, right? Because back then, Chinese families weren't like your nuclear families in the West, right? It wasn't a very big extended family that all lived in one place or all lived very close together. Hundreds of people make up a family, right? And the king, or the emperor back then, was the patriarch over a family of families, right? And so the entire society is built into this family structure. It's a very rigid hierarchy you got going on, right? And what he thought was, in order to have a stable society where everyone can live in peace, we have to have virtues that make us not great people, like Aristotle suggests, right? Aristotle thinks that, a virtuous person is a smart one, a really capable one. Meanwhile, Confucius thinks that a virtuous person is an unbreakable link in the hierarchy, right? It's a person who holds society together and makes it stable. That's what a good person is. And the virtuous person, who's called the Junzi, must possess they have to possess a bunch of qualities, but simplified down, they have to possess 3 virtues, right? The first is ren, which means, I suppose, the virtue of being a good leader. Let's say we take this person here, right? Since everyone is embedded within this hierarchy, you have people who are equal to you have people who are better than you, above you, who you have to respect, and you have your subordinates, right? Now, what's key for a person is being a good leader to the people below you. That's the first one. It's called ren. The second one is being a good friend to the people equal to you. That's called yi. And then lastly It's being a good subordinate to those who command you. And that's called li. I don't know how to, is it this? Yeah, there we go. Let's go. Li. All right. So anyways, if everybody in society aims at least once to possess these three characteristics, then even if you have no laws, you have a state without laws, if everybody wants these things, your society will be stable, right? Because you have a very rigid social structure here. You respect your elders, you're good to your underlings, and you're good friends with everyone, right? So, what do these mean? What do they entail? That's what we have to get into today, right? Let's start with Zhen, right? When you translate this into English, most people say it's something like benevolence or love, right? But really, I think that is more the virtue of being a good leader, right? What does that mean? Like it does entail some love and benevolence, right? But it's like, for example, you are a CEO, right? If you were a CEO who overworked your underlings, gave them too many hours, right? Your underlings will probably feel some brewing resentment towards you, right? And back then, in ancient China, that would probably result in a peasant rebellion and millions of deaths, right? And so you have to be willing to give to your subordinates. You must treat them with empathy and all that sort of stuff. And there's a he didn't say exactly what this means. He didn't say exactly what it means, because people should always be able to know what's best to do in the situation that they're in, right? So he didn't give us a person with Zhen has to do all this all the time, right? Because it's a situational thing, right? But basically, treating your subordinates with love, with care, that will ensure that your subordinates won't harbor hate towards those above, right? And so that's a virtue anchoring how you treat people below you. And now, interestingly, right, this might occur to you, right? If you had a bad emperor at the very, very top who didn't have this virtue, that would be a huge problem, right? Because then he wouldn't be very good to any of his subjects down below, and that would cause social chaos, and that would, cause uprisings, and then society would collapse in total. And the bad thing is we don't get to decide who the emperor is, right? And so Confucius came up with this plan, right? He came up with this idea to minimize the damage of a bad emperor. What's it called? It's a testing system, right? It's the testing system. So what we do is we surround the emperor with the best teachers in the world, the best scholars, the best advisors, and that will minimize the impact of having one bad emperor onto the people, right? Because it shifts through this chain of command, and if all of these people at the very top are virtuous, then society will stay stable, even if the person at the very, very top is a bad person, right? And so the system is the, I don't know what it's called in English, imperial examinations. That's what it's called, right? And this is essential, absolutely essential to understanding Chinese, society, right? Because everybody, the virtue that the words that people used to live by was farm and raise your kids, educate the fuck out of them, and then send them to the imperial examination. If they fail, they do the same thing as you. They farm, educate the fuck out of their kids, and then send them to the imperial examination again, right? That's literally what Chinese society is all about. Because the examination, that was the only way to move up in Chinese society. It was an easy way to move up, right? Not very easy, but it was a way to move up in Chinese society, right? And so that's why China as a society values education a lot, even in the modern day. And then the second virtue that's really important is yi. It means how to be a good friend, basically, the virtue of being a good friend. And what does that mean? It means that you're able to help your friends when they need help, right? And for example, it basically works something like this, right? You have a friend, right? If you need help and he helps you, then the next time he needs help, you have to help him back, right? If you fail to help him back, then you don't possess the value of yi, right? So yi basically entails two things, right? Knowing your limits and being look, it's knowing your limits and being helpful to your friends, right? Because if you promise something that you can't do to your friend, then you're still gonna have to do it. If you don't do it, then you don't possess the virtue of yi, right? And so you have to know what you can't do so that you can go, I'm sorry, I can't help you with this. But if you just want to show off that, I'm a person with the virtue of yi, and then you promise to help them with everything, then you don't actually get anything done. And so, arrogance is actually an enemy of yi, right? Yes?
So if you promise something, but you can't get it done, is that actually linked to the other virtue which is called lian and like 持?
Oh yeah, of course. These aren't the only three virtues, but
yeah.
they are the big ones, right? They are the ones that anchor Chinese society, right? Yeah.
Is like the imperial exam where Gaokao comes from?
Yeah. That's we still have that system in place today, basically. And so, this virtue actually still exists in Chinese society, and it exists as like connections, right? Connections between people. That's how people trade favors in China, and things like that, right? And a lot of the time, these Confucian values go against the law, right? It makes you do things that it might force you to do things that don't comply with modern day law. And so now, Chinese society is placing less of an emphasis on this, right? So for example, back then in like 1980s Hong Kong, right? You got those lawbreakers who go like, oh yeah, I'm your brother. I got you. You need to rob a bank? I got you, right? That's not how we interpreted this. That's not how we interpret this anymore. Yep.
So this is not unique in China, right? For example, if you go to Brazil, they also got like a similar culture.
Yeah. But it's essentially, the value of yi is essentially, right? You have to help the people who are equal to you, right? If especially if they help you, you have to help them back, right? It's a give and take relationship. So, lastly, you have the value of li, right? And this is a value that deals with how to be a good subordinate to the people above you. Now, this might sound weird from a Western perspective because, like, I can't believe, it's so dystopian to think that obedience is a virtue, right? Yeah? But it's really key to upholding a chain of respect in China, right? Because this is not just a chain of command, right? This should be a chain of respect, right? And what makes it a chain of respect, what makes it different, is that everyone on the chain has to be respectable, right? How do you be respectable? Well, you have to have this value, right? If you have both respect for the people above you and the people above you have love for you, then it'll result in, peace throughout the realm, right? So how do we show this? How do we show this respect, right? It's a lot of little rules that Confucius comes up with. That's like, if you commit these rituals, these ritualistic rules every single day, then you're always going to show that you have this respect for your elderlies, right? So for example, when you clean glasses with them, you always hold your glasses lower than them, right? And even if you're like a general fighting in a war, when your father dies, you have to take 3 years off to mourn them, to mourn their deaths, right? It's a way of honoring your parents. It's a lot of tiny little rules, right? So what Confucius is doing is basically gaslighting you into doing everyday things so that you have this ingrained conscience that you have to respect people, right? Now this might sound bad, right? From a Western perspective, it probably does sound bad, right? Making you do all these little rituals that make you a subordinate, right? But it's what anchors, it's what holds society together, because you learn to repress some feelings of anger when you do this, right? You learn to repress it, and if everybody can repress their sentiments of anger, because remember, a lot of the time back then there were no laws, right? If everyone can repress their feelings of anger, then you can maintain stability, right? And so that's why these three virtues is what anchors Chinese society, even without the law. The law was never very strong in ancient China. It sort of competed. It's a competing system with Confucian ethics, right? And usually it's the Confucian ethics that outlasts the law. Yep.